In just under 20 minutes, we're going to be covering 6 different examples of match case statements in Python. These examples include strings, integers, tuples, lists, and also dictionaries. So we have a ton to cover. Now, match case statements, you can kind of think of them as like if, else, and elif. It's in a situation where we have to deal with multiple conditions. There's a little bit more readability, in my opinion, using a match case statement over an if and else statement, but make your own conclusions after watching this video. All right, let's start coding. All right, so let's get started. The first example we're going to be taking a look at, example 1 over here, is going to be matching integers. So matching integers, and let's build out our basic example. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to set position over here equal to 5. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a match case statement based around baseball positions. You can think of positions 1 through 9, and we're going to go through that. So here's how the syntax works. What we're going to do is we're going to say match our position. We're going to put colon over here, and we're going to say is case 1, right? If our position is 1, we're going to print out pitcher. Then we're going to do a thing for every other position. So case 2, print, and this is going to be catcher. I'm just going to do this for all these. So I have my code already prepped over here to the side. So I'm just going to copy that and just go through these with you guys. So position 1 is pitcher, 2 is catcher, 3 is first baseman, 4 is second baseman, 5 is third baseman, 6 shortstop, 7 left fielder, 8 center fielder, 9 right fielder. You don't need to copy all these, but copy a few just to get the syntax down a little bit. And then what we're going to do is essentially set up an unknown. So we're going to have here is case, and it's going to be an underscore. We're going to say colon, and then we're going to say print over here. We're going to put unknown position. So unknown position, like that. Awesome. So if I run this, right, our position is 5, and you'll see it prints out third baseman. We can go over here and put 3, rerun this, first baseman. Well, what happens if I put 15, right? And I run this again, unknown positions. That's why we have this case here. And each of these cases match up to this position that we have over here. Well, this is great, but we can expand upon this. What these are really good with are building these into functions, right? So let me just show you how we can modify this into a function. So what I'm going to say is def, and we can put position matcher like this. And we're going to put an N in here over here, right? And then I'm going to copy all of this code over here, and we're going to paste it, right? And if we run this, awesome. And all we have to do now is we can go over here in position matcher, and let's throw in our position. We'll change this to a 4, right? And we'll go down below and put this in over here for our position. And check it out, second baseman. One other thing, which is pretty common with these, and I already have a video on this on the channel, actually including validation as well, but is taking user input. So let's expand this out a little bit. We can say position equals int, and we'll put input over here, and we're going to say enter position here, right? And let's say we put 6 for our position. Then we go over here and we run this position matcher for position, and shortstop is printed. So again, kind of just how this works for our first example. And there's gonna be a lot of examples in this video. Match, what are we matching? Put all of our cases here for baseball positions. We have 1 through 9. And we also set up an unknown, which we have an underscore over here. And to clarify it, you can also turn this into a function. You put def over here, and then position, we're inputting in a number. And if you want to grab input, use input over here, and we'll keep going. So our second one over here is going to be matching strings. Example 2, match strings. I'm going to continue just making these into functions. So we're going to call this player Hall of Fame, like that. And we're going to put in a player name. And inside on this, we're going to say match player underscore name, right? And let's spit out a few cases. So case over here, we're going to put Babe Ruth. And if we have that, print, which actually I need to put a colon at the end, say print Babe Ruth is in the Hall of Fame. And I'm going to do this for a lot of different players. Again, feel free to use your own examples. You don't even have to use baseball. So we'll copy over some of the examples that I put over here. And I'll show you what I had for the very end. Let's just make sure that these are all there. Babe Ruth, Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, Ted Williams, all Hall of Famers. Bonds, not a Hall of Famer. Griffey, Hall of Famer. Jeter, also a Hall of Famer. Mike Trout, not a Hall of Famer. And for our default one this time, we're going to say case. And what we're going to do is print. And I'm going to do an F string. We're going to say F over here. And we're going to say player name is not in list like that. And I know technically it's not a list, but that's what we have going. Whoops. And put that there like this. Awesome, because technically I could just put a baseball player that's not in here. Let's say someone like a Walter Johnson and Hall of Fame pitcher, but not in this match. Well, I guess I should just put match case statement instead of list, because someone think of a Python list. But regardless, we have that over here now. And then we can just go over here to Player Hall of Fame. And let's put in some names. So the first one let's try is Mike Trout. So Mike Trout. And Mike Trout is not a Hall of Famer. Awesome. Let's put Mike Stanton, pitcher and also a hitter. Mike Stanton is not in the match. Case statement. Derek Jeter. And we'll put one more for Babe Ruth, right? Derek Jeter is a Hall of Famer. Let's put Babe Ruth in here. Babe Ruth is a Hall of Famer. Awesome. Now let's take a look at example number 3. So example 3, we're going back to integers, but this time we're going to be taking a look at like greater than, some equal signs, a few things like that across the board comparisons. So we're going to say def, and we're going to call this hits player, and we're going to put in lifetime hits like this, and we're going to say is match lifetime hits. And let's start building our case statement. So case, we're going to say x if x is greater than 4,000, right? Then we're going to say print, and we can just put over here one of the greatest, right? And then we have a few other cases in here. So I am just going to copy these over. I'll explain why. Let's just do that. And here we go. So over 4,000 hits, right? One of the greatest. If they have over 3,000 hits, Hall of Fame level. Baseball Hall of Fame, you tend to have 3,000 hits or above for contact hitter. 2,500 to 3,000, borderline Hall of Famer. There are Hall of Famers in there, but from the 3,000 hit club, that's borderline. 1,500 to 2,500, All-Star. Not always the case, but just for this hits example, we're going to go through that. If under 0, a player can't have under 0 hits. You can't have a negative hit. So that's invalid input. And then anything else, which would be anything less than 1,500, so 1,499 or 1,000 or 500 or 5, we get a professional baseball player. Now you can take a look at the syntax over here, right? This time we just matched Babe Ruth, and this one over here, right? We matched these numbers. This time we're actually using X, right? So we're matching lifetime hits. We're counting it as X over here. So case X if X is greater than 4,000. So it looks at lifetime hits. Is lifetime hits greater than 4,000? Case X if X is over here 3,000, greater than or equal to, less than 4,000. And we go across the board right over here. So we'll run that. And then let's go through this. So we're going to have is hits player. Let's start off with 3,500 or 3,599 because I did not see that. And that's Hall of Fame level. Now, I actually have an error over here. So forgot to put the greater than equal sign. So that wouldn't work. But if we put 4,000 in here now, one of the greatest. Awesome. Let's put 500, right? Which isn't in here. Professional baseball player. Let's put -5 in here. Invalid input. So this is how you can do comparisons, right? If you want to have your input into this match and then see if it falls within numbers, within integers. And you could probably do the same thing with floats if you really wanted to, but for the ease of this tutorial, I did integers like that. All right, so our next example is going to take a look at tuples. So example 4. And let's start coding. So what we're going to do this time is we're going to look at another metric that a player can make the Hall of Fame on, baseball hitter. And we'll say home runs because we have hits over there. They're complementary. So we'll say def hits home run player. Put lifetime hits in here. Lifetime hits. And then lifetime home runs, right? Colon. And then we'll say match. And we're going to match both of these over here, hits and home runs. And this time, instead of just case X, we're going to do case X and Y. And then we're going to say if X is greater than 4,000, right, which we're matching from above. And then we're going to say or Y is greater than or equal to 650. And it should be equal to over here. And we're going to print the same thing, one of the greatest. So essentially, I'm going to do the same thing for home runs each time and add that in to what we had for hits. And I'm just going to copy the rest of my code. There's a lot of typing. Great. And these prints need to be shifted over. All right, so let me explain this code. Essentially what we're doing, we're taking a tuple, right? We have hits and home runs that we're taking in. So we're matching our hits and home runs. I've included or this time, which I don't think we've included the other examples. So one of these two conditions have to be met for a player to be considered one of the greatest. Otherwise, it goes to Hall of Fame level if one of these two are met. Otherwise, it goes down to this if one of these two are met. Otherwise, this if one of those two are met. Then we made sure, right, there's an invalid input. Otherwise, professional baseball player. So let me run this and we can go through some examples. So we can say hits home run players. Let's say a player has 3,500 hits and then 600 home runs. And that's populate Hall of Fame level. But if we put 4,500 hits with 600 home runs, one of the greatest. And if we put like -5 for one of these over here, it still technically has one of the greatest because it meets the first condition, right? So 4,500. And this logic would have to be changed a little bit, right? We'd have to have some sort of and over here to make sure that we don't have an invalid input. But if we have both of these being -5, right, it's now going to say invalid input. So a little bit more logic you would have to tweak on here, but I just wanted to show you quickly how these ORs work. And let's say we have like 100 and 100, right? That's going to be a professional baseball player, just like that. All right, our next example we're going to be taking a look at is dictionaries. So example 5, dictionaries. Okay, and let's start building that out. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a baseball player. And this time, inside over here, what we're going to have is player, and we'll have name, put the pitcher Steve Carlton, and then we'll have number 32. And we'll just do a match baseball player. I know I didn't make this into a function this time, but that's all right. Case inside over here, player, say name, number, like that, and print player, put the name in here, number, and then we need to build out our case for invalid inputs. Let's see, print unknown data, and prints out player Steve Carlton number 32 because we have a valid input. If we change this up, we would get the unknown data. And our last example over here, example 6, we're going to match lists this time, and we'll go back into a function for the last one. So what I'll put over here is we'll say def describe roster, and we'll have a roster that we take in over here, right? And then we'll say match roster case, that return, and this is if we have an empty list, right? Return no players in the roster, or it should be on the roster. Then for our next one, we're going to say case, put a player in over here, and we'll say return f string, one player on the roster, and then put the player in over here. Okay. And then we're going to do next is we'll have case, we'll put 2 players this time. We'll have player 1 and also player 2. We'll do the same thing, return, we'll say 2 players on the roster. We'll put player 1 and 2. Like that. And let's do one more on here in case. Like what happens if we have more than 2 players? Put star others like this. Also that return needs to be shifted over there. And we'll say first 2 players on the roster, player 1, player 2, and we'll say and inside over here we'll say length others like that, more, and we'll put 3. So now that we have this over here, we can make a roster. So we'll say roster 1 equals, we'll put some players that are playing today. So we'll put Mike Trout, Nolan Arenado, and then Mookie Betts. And if I run this with describe roster, put roster 1 in here, and say first 2 players in the roster, Mike Trout, Nolan Arenado, and 1 more. Now if I just got rid of Mookie Betts, 2 players on the roster, Mike Trout and Nolan Arenado. And if I got rid of Nolan Arenado, we're down to 1. And run this 1 player on the roster, Mike Trout. I think it's a good way to end the coding. So once again, there's a lot of different ways that you can use match case statements. I showed you guys just one basic integer. Then I showed you why we can create a function based around it. And as well as you can take input, which I recommend you check out my 2 input videos on that. I showed you how you can match strings. Then we took a look at an example where we have integers on here and we're comparing it to other numbers, right? Then I showed you a tuple example again with the comparisons, but this time I also threw an or, and I showed you why this broke down at the very end, which I'd have to change some of the logic, but felt like just for this video didn't really need it. Then I showed you a dictionary example, and we finalized this video going through a list where we can print out what's in the specific list if we have a blank list or if we have multiple players associated with it. Hope you found this video on match case statements helpful. If you did, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you are brand new. I'm uploading multiple videos every single week on either Python or data related topics. A few other videos down below that are more beginner Python if you want to check them out, and a playlist right over here.